Okay, and I think we are live now, so I'm just gonna invite Alba to our talk. And hopefully Instagram works. Hi, Sayed, how are you doing? Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. Okay, and then hopefully the request has gone through and I accepted and it all magically works on the first go because Instagram is totally gonna cooperate. Come on. Taking a moment. Ciao, how are you, Emma? Okay, come on, machine. You can do it. Sorry. It's really taking its time. We will get there in the end. Hi, everybody. Oh, there we go. Hi.
Hello.
I can see you and hear you.
Yay. Yay. Can you hear me well? Is the volume
Yes.
fine?
All good. Thank you. How are you doing?
We made it. I'm good. Finally home.
Yes. I was gonna say, I know you were out doing tours, so we won't keep you for long today because I know you have other things to get on with. But thank you so much for being here today. And if that's okay, we will get started. Hi, everybody that has already joined us. I will do a very brief introduction as to what we're doing here today, and then Alba will introduce herself because I believe in the power of speaking for oneself. There you go. So this is actually the second episode on the second season of Tour Guide Central, which is just a platform where tour guides from all over the world come together to talk about what our business is like, what our profession entails, and the daily struggles, but also beautiful moments that we get to experience as tour guides anywhere and everywhere. And today we have Alba joining us from Rome. So please let everyone who may be joining us and who may not know who you are know why are you here, what do you do, and all that type of stuff.
Thank you for this introduction. I'm very happy of being here and chatting together. We met through Instagram, so I'm very excited finally to have a almost real life conversation. So about myself, I am indeed a tour guide in Rome. I am an archaeologist coming from academia, but then, as I always say of myself, also when I introduce myself in tours, I discovered that I enjoyed storytelling too much. And so I gradually shifted more and more towards communicating to the public, first through museums and now as a tour guide. And I still do a lot of work for museums, but I enjoy interacting with people so much that this is the fun part, sharing my knowledge with an audience, both in person here in Rome and on the internet, so on social media especially. So I enjoy especially talking about the less known places of Rome. This is my mission as a tour guide, not the Colosseum and the Vatican museums, but so much more to discover. So hopefully my social media activity will work, and sooner or later I will get more requests for in touristy areas of Rome rather than the standard tours that obviously are more requested at the moment.
Yep. No, I mean, I think that was actually what made me start following your account, because I was like, oh my God, there is a tour guide in Rome that actually knows there's more to Rome than, the Colosseum and the Pantheon and the Vatican. Wow, amazing. That's not true, by the way. There is lots of other lovely tour guides out there.
Oh, yes.
I remember that was something that draw me to you, and I think because we have a similar background as well, because I come from academia too, and I very much ended up in this, like you. It's much more fulfilling and satisfying, at least for me, to communicate with the public and help them engage than just the trials and tribulations of the academic life, which we will put aside for today. But I guess what I wanted to ask you first, so that people get to know you a bit better, is how did you got into archaeology and eventually tour guiding? Like, have you always loved history and archaeology, or was it something that sort of just like happened one day?
My love for archaeology comes from two very characteristic things of my story, which will sound weird at first, because I'll tell you, first of all, I love crafts. I love touching materials. And I've always, since childhood, loved all the activities that have to do with getting your hands dirty and the stuff. And this combined with my big brother, I have a big brother, reading fantasy books to me when I was a little girl. And he got me so passionate about history, because fantasy is just a reinterpretation of medieval times, especially, that when I discovered art history in school, which is a mandatory subject in Italy, I just fell more and more in love, first with medieval architecture. Then I discovered this wonderful thing that is reusing ancient Roman monuments inside monastic buildings. And this got me more and more focusing into archaeological excavations and looking at how these spaces were conceived in following time periods. So I'm a bizarre archaeologist because I look at different time periods, not only one, and especially at the perception of these archaeological structures. So I love interacting with them, but also analyzing how they are perceived by the people around. And I guess that's also what got me into storytelling and tour guiding.
Makes sense. I mean, again, so relatable. In my family, we're all nerds of one kind or another. So I think I started reading history books at the same time I was reading Tolkien. So, you know,
there you go. That was it. That was the Lord of the Rings. My brother read to me. Yes,
it's
that's the one.
transition. And you know, there is but I also like it because I think, you know, people like you and me can appreciate how mediums that normally just get discarded as entertaining for the masses can have actually a useful platform to bring people into a subject that can come across as more dry or whatever that is. So it's always good talking about these things, because I think it helps legitimize how people actually, you know, engage with this subject. But that's a pretty cool backstory. I was kind of expecting the typical Indiana Jones sort of thing, which typically say from a lot of archaeologists. But so I'm glad I'm glad we've moved past that. But that's cool. So within archaeology, what would you say was like your most fascinating type of research or dig and material culture that you've ever sort of worked with? I know this is hard, but
it is. It's very hard to choose, but I must say maybe the most wonderful experience was collaborating with Brown University and working in this international team during a research in a charter house in northern France. The landscape was something magical. You read in books. We were surrounded by these prairies. This charter house is still inhabited, so you would see it coming to life. And especially for as archaeologists, it's wrong to say discovery, but it was indeed a discovery. We were able to uncover the intact hydraulic engineering system. And it was fascinating because what I love about archaeology is learning about and touching everyday life, material culture, not the big historical episodes, but actually, wow, these monks had running water and a draining system with pipes made of lead. So I wonder if they got poisoned. So it's all about connecting to reality and everyday life. So I love that part more. So I guess that was a wonderful experience, both for the scientific approaches adopted, but also for the people, the atmosphere. That was one of the experiences I loved the most. Most of my other work was looking for ruins inside forests and all by myself. So it wasn't as fun, as social as this wonderful archaeological excavation. So I miss those days in a certain way. That part I miss about archaeology.
Well, there is a certain wonder, right, about archaeology. I've not been in many archaeological digs, but the ones that I've been to, they were just, I think the beauty is that you never really know what you're gonna find. Like, even though we do all the research and, you know, we get prepared when we send a team somewhere, we're just essentially just digging anything with best wishes. There is no guarantee you're gonna find that or that you will find something else. And it is really exciting when you get to see ordinary sort of, well, not ordinary, but day-to-day activities or materials that normally we take for granted, because it really connects us with the past. It's like,
exactly.
we are people. We've been doing these people
Yes.
things
I
for
was about to
thousands of
say the
years.
same thing. It's the one thing that creates a connection that helps us understand better. And that's what I always try to do. I do my best when I tour to take people and make them look at ordinary things. Something very neat, for example, not many know about, is that the Colosseum now has an entire museum installation with all the remains of food that were found in a sewer system. So we have the perfect knowledge about what people would munch on. Today we have hot dogs and popcorn. Back then there were peaches, apricots, roasted meat, seafood. So these things are also the things that are more striking to visitors. And so when I have material culture available, I always push in that direction. It gives that wonderful connection, and it helps also allows people to remember more. I can leave them something. That's maybe the worst part of being a tour guide. Most of the time, you do not maintain that connection. It's people you see once, and then that's it. So my dream is to, leave something every single time. I do my best somehow to leave either emotions, experiences, or something they will remember.
No, I mean, I completely relate to all of that. It is that sort of, there is a lot of pressure, because you're kind of thinking, these people may not ever come back here, and I'm the only chance they have to actually really connect with this. So I don't know if you feel that, but sometimes, particularly if I know that people are coming with like, I don't know, some form of special agenda, or they want to really see something, or it's a special occasion, a birthday, a wedding, whatever it may be, you kind of really feel that need to emphasize and look for those little moments of just glue that will attach themselves to the visitor and carry on, hopefully for many years to come. But it's not always easy, and it very much depends, right, on what the tourists sort of want to see, or what they're coming to see. And I kind of wanted to ask you more about this from your experience as tour guide, because I know Rome, out of all places on earth, is a very peculiar tour guiding experience. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you was, why did you decide to become a tour guide in Rome? Like, could you have been a tour guide elsewhere? And if so, why did you decide that, what, I'm going to stick with the big city? This is me.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I did not actually start as a tour guide in Rome. I started in another region, actually the same region, but a different province. There's this entire area north of Rome. It's called Tuscia. And it is this area full of medieval towns up on hills, wonderful medieval architecture. A lot of movies are filmed there for this reason. And I was touring there, and then all of a sudden I got a collaboration contract with a museum in Rome. And I started realizing that that was my place. I fell in love with the city. The city kidnapped me, basically. And from there, yes, from there, I got the first requests to work in the most known sites. And I realized that it's also a practical matter. There's more requests. There's less visitors outside. So I'm the happiest person in the world when I get requests still for that area where I started. But they're very rare. Everyone wants Rome. That's also why I use my social media to try to promote those areas, hoping that someone realizes that there are gorgeous places just 1 hour away from the city that have so much to offer, especially if you enjoy nature and very nice areas for food, for the experience rather than visiting a certain place. Italy is famous also for its many traditions, many patronal feasts and festivals, movie festivals. So it's wonderful. This is Chestnut Festival period here in that area of Rome. So that's an idea, for example. So now I'm in love with Rome. I would never think of myself leaving the city. but I am. It's like, you know, the first crush. That area, the Tuscia, is my first crush. But now my true love is Rome, and it will be hard
I
for
love
me to
it.
leave.
I love that comparison. That makes perfect sense. But again, I think this really helps people understand, part of what it goes into the sort of practicalities of becoming a tour guide, because we have that problem here too in the UK. In fact, I think in the UK is probably one of the very few examples that is probably just as bad as Italy, because London is London. Everyone wants to go to London. Everyone wants to see London, and then you're like, but there's a whole country out there.
I have to pay the bills, but there's also something else.
So it's one of those things, and I did actively make a conscious choice of staying away from London, partially because I wanted to promote the local area. But in just like you, at some point I had to accept that simply some people just will always want to go and see London, or will always want to go and see Stonehenge. So I do it the opposite way that you do. I work really with the local area very strongly. I'm almost forcing my way
continue, stay strong.
Yeah. But you do have to accept the fact that, unfortunately or fortunately, depends how you see it, some places are always going to have a larger sort of amount of people coming.
Attraction, yes, which is concerning. I think it was a traumatic time for many, the pandemic, where we had to stop and reflect on many things. As a tour guide, I was hoping that we would not go back to these same habits of mass tourism, because this also causes damage to these large sites. We have Pompeii in Italy, which is the most known example for damage caused by mass tourism, but there are many others. Unfortunately, we went back to that habit of having so many visitors exploding inside these sites. So at least my part is trying to sneak inside recommendations for untouristy places of the city during the main tours. And sometimes I'm so happy that I get DMs, I get Instagram messages from my visitors saying, Alba, I went to that place you said on tour and it was actually cool. Thank you. So it works. Sometimes it works, but there must be, it's almost our responsibility to guide not only during the tour, but guide in the entire experience in this country. And it's working. I see a lot of, especially also locals, because Rome is also about local tourism that choose the out of the ordinary experience. I am promoting some street art tours, all in the open, so no damage there. Or there are many food tours being offered, and there are a lot of very cool archaeological museums to see in the city that are not the Colosseum. So it is slowly working, and hopefully it will get better and better.
No, I mean, I know that this season was particularly brutal. I remember some days logging onto Instagram and seeing your feed, and I was like this poor woman is gonna drop dead. No, but
yes,
it is concerning, and I think overall, I think overall the tourism industry is waking up to this idea that we can't keep doing that. It's not healthy for us, for society, for the environment, for anybody. So it's very important to keep on doing, what you do of telling people, hey, this is all good and nice, but how about some other options?
Yes, absolutely. And it's also about the quality of the experience. On some days, it is just so crowded, especially in high season, that you don't even enjoy the place you're visiting. So why not just opt for a less crowded place where you can see just as awesome Renaissance art in case of the Vatican museums, or archaeological collections, always in case of the Vatican museums. And there are newer and newer museums also that are opening in the city. Where they are completing the third subway line. And many areas of the city, even the most archaeological ones, are giving back so many treasures that will open to the public.
Nice.
So yes, and more is coming up. We have the Jubilee in 2025. So usually during Universal Jubilees, the city transforms. And that will be mostly the greatest responsibility for tour guides, to try to redirect towards other sites. I see
That's
someone
gonna be.
asking
Yeah,
something.
I was gonna say, we have a question from one of our colleagues in Petra. By the
Mm-hmm.
way, if you ever want to go visit Jordan, he's the man. But yeah, I know this is actually quite a controversial subject in tourism overall about fake guides.
Yes,
Um, I
it
think
is
there is,
a true problem also in Rome.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
there is two main problems, and I would like to differentiate for
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of this. There is a difference between fake guides and not qualified or official guides. It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily the same, and this is something that we're having problems with. There is unfortunately a lot of fake guides who pretend to be a guide. They essentially just take your money and they just take you around places, being like, "This is the Colosseum," reading Wikipedia and moving on. There is, however,
Mm.
not just in Rome, but I'm talking literally the whole world, a whole movement of guides that, for whichever reason, don't have the official state qualification that allows them to be a guide. Now, that's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily because they're fake. That is because, unfortunately, in a lot of countries, the way of becoming a tour guide is not accessible to everybody, or because they may still be finding a way to do this. So,
Mm-hmm.
just in general, for awareness for people out there,
Yes, it's fair to
this is
specify.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
difference. But yes, the issue with fake guides and that type of sort of, I guess I consider them like, people preying on tourists, is, I know it's a
Mm-hmm.
serious problem. So how have you ever had to deal with this directly, or is it just something that you just know about?
Well, whoever walks around the area of the most famous sites in Rome will see these people trying to, attract or sell, and it is evident immediately that they are not even licensed, because in Italy, by law, to to work as a tour guide, you need to show your license at all times around your neck. So you will see these people without any license around. It is pretty evident. I personally never had problems, but I do have, and I was also checked once. We have police that now and then comes up to you while you're working and asks to see your identification and license to check if you are regularly licensed and registered and everything. This is even stricter in the Vatican museums, where you have to renew your license every year. So there is a lot of monitoring happening, and this monitoring is also connected to restrictions that have been applied to providing tickets for certain areas of the Colosseum. So it actually damaged tour operators, because by avoiding people from just buying blocks of tickets, they also damaged tour operators who cannot purchase tickets in groups. They have to, or in advance. So it becomes very hard to offer certain tours. But at least we have been solving this problem of fake guides, as I say. I'm not sure how it works in UK, but here in Italy, even to accompany a group, like tour leaders have a different kind of license. So even if you're just walking people around and showing them monuments without explaining them, you need a license. So it's very hard to be an illegal or fake tour leader here in Italy.
In the UK is very, very different. And actually, I think a lot of different places in Europe have different situations. It's the same in Spain. In Spain, well, it depends what part of Spain, because in Spain, every single region essentially has their own way of doing this. The region where I come from, for example, has not taken out new placements for guides for literally like
Mm-hmm.
a decade or something like that. It's insane,
Wow.
because they simply consider that there is no need for it. So we
Hmm.
get no tourism because the official guides will not give tours, or the tours are restricted. So then it's people that have qualifications from a different kind, like, for example, archaeologists, historians, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
that will perform those duties out of their own entrepreneurial ideas or whatever. So that's, for example, a situation of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
In many places in Spain, you do need specific badges or passes to show that you have the right to tour there. For tour leaders, I think it's different, like in Italy, but it
Mm-hmm.
very much depends on the city and on the region. In the
Mm-hmm.
UK, it's honestly quite a strange thing. The only place where you need a sort of certification for really is London. In the city of London, if you want to visit specific monuments such as Westminster Abbey or St. Paul's or the Tower of London, if you want to guide there, you need to have a blue badge or a green badge or something like that, which is not even a proper state recognized qualification. This is just done by another body that sort of organizes these exams that you need to pass. But it's essentially kind of like a tick of the box exercise. A tour operator can technically take people in there. They just will not be allowed to guide. In the same way that if I take you there, we can go and have a conversation, but I cannot guide you. So that's this specific situation for London, because just like in Rome, you know, there's lots of different ways of exploring the city and lots of different tourists that come for, you know, different reasons, different requirements. In the rest of the UK, there is no official need for any of it. In fact, the vast majority of tourist offices in the whole of the UK don't even have a program, which is really sad. So it causes a lot of issues, and it is a concerning situation that some places on the earth have ridiculous regulations that make becoming a tour guide almost impossible, and then in some other places we almost don't have enough. So it becomes a very strange thing that I think at some point, you know, the general authorities, I don't know if the EU or individual countries, whatever, should really look into it to make the field safer for everybody, fairer and more accessible. But it's a very strange thing that's happening. So
it is, and I feel like now something must be done because we're bouncing back from the pandemic time, and I physically felt tourism doubling in numbers in comparison to 2019. And most of us changed jobs in 2 years with no jobs. They had to, you know, make life choices. So we're even less. So something must definitely be done, hopefully. And I'm aware that the Italian government, it's been changing recently, will be doing something to regulate the giving out of these licenses. Yes, Petra ProGuide is right. We should count on tourist awareness. That is right. I do try to, maybe I should, that's an idea for a reel. There you go, right there. In Italy, for example, it is illegal to sell anything in the streets without a license. So if anybody stops you trying to sell you souvenirs, tickets to enter inside museums, anything, bracelets, it is illegal. So that person is committing a crime, and you also risk to receive a fine for purchasing anything from that person. So yes, definitely awareness also for tourist safety.
People don't really think about that, and it's definitely something that needs to happen more of. And again, I think it's because in some places it's very heavily policed and in some places it's not. So it creates a big issue. But yes, tourists should be better educated. I think, unfortunately, for a really long time in tourism, we've sort of just accepted that, oh, we will hire someone so they can take care of our problems, when actually it shouldn't be like that at all.
No.
But it's part of the issues that we need to change. Now, I wanted to ask you something else about your experience as a tour guide in Rome, which is really about the other things that you would like people to be aware of the city, that aren't, you know, the main places that everyone wants to see. When you have, let's say, an average first city goer, right? Let's just sort of given a clean slate. What sort of things do you think people should go and visit that are out of the, you know, sort of top 5 or whatever? And why do you always like sending them there?
Okay, so let me think. There are 2 areas, although one of them is now becoming more known, so it's working. After us guides insisting on it, it is working, which is the other side of the river. So usually the more touristy area of Rome is the eastern side of the river. There's an area called Trastevere, which means across the river, which is the place where also all the locals go for having nice meals, aperitivo, which is the typical Italian experience. And it is a lovely area with these narrow streets, medieval churches. Many of the churches have underground, entire new world, underground areas full of archaeological ruins. And it is also the street food hub of the city. Not many know that Roman food especially is not only pasta. But we have a lot of many different types of street food, and that is the perfect area where to try it. So I definitely always recommend Trastevere. And this tiny, tiny neighborhood, which is facing it, but on the eastern side of the river, which is the Jewish district. Rome hosts the most ancient Judaic community of Europe. It has been here growing up together with ancient Romans since the 3rd century before Christ, and it developed its own rituals, traditions. It is wonderful to walk around because many of the buildings were made by reusing ancient Roman ruins. So you walk around and you see a sarcophagus being used as the entrance to a building, or the head of a sculpture inside the wall used as a brick. It's very fun also to walk around. And maybe my favorite monument of all in the city is in that neighborhood. It's the Theater of Marcellus, which is a Greek theater on top of which an entire Renaissance palace was built. So it looks like the Renaissance is melting into ancient Rome. It's gorgeous. So those two areas are a must, especially because they are the closest to the more touristy area. So they're easy to reach and much less crowded. I have 3 more, right? So let me think. The Ostiense district, which is this neighborhood, always reachable by subway. So it's very close to the city center. It was supposed to be the industrial area of the city starting from the 1900s. So they started building from scratch these giant factories, bridges, but then the war happened, so many of these factories were just abandoned. And 10 years ago, they started requalifying this area and turning all these factories into museums, cultural hubs. There's a lot of street art going on, so it's kind of the underground area of the city, which I love. And it's a very young neighborhood. A lot of art students especially hang out there. So it's very fun to also walk around and see a lot of street artists and street performers working or just interacting. And the most peculiar thing of this district is that no matter where you are, you will see this giant metal skeleton, like a cylinder. It's called the gas duct, the gazzometro in Italian. And it's there. It's almost like the St. Peter's Dome version of that area. And it's a point of reference of the neighborhood. Like wherever you are, you just look up and you know where you are in relation to where that giant monster is. And that used to be the main gas tank of the city of Rome. And then it wasn't used any longer when we started having gas inside our houses, but the skeleton remains, and it's so cool. It's a very cool area of the city. My generation goes there to have brunch on Sundays, usually. That's very, very nice. So Ostiense, the Aventine Hill with the lovely orange garden. There's a special illusion there. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it has to do with perspective and things that shrink all of a sudden. And I have one last, let me think, there's just so much. Maybe out of the ordinary, there's, yes, okay. North of the city center, there's this entire neighborhood called Città Giardino, which means city garden. And it was an entire urban project created in the 1920s to build from scratch this city garden, basically based on British models, where each house had its own orchard, and it had to be a self-independent neighborhood. And it's full of green, beautiful, because every architect had a different style. So you walk around, you see every house in a different style. And also one of the most important ancient bridges of the city of Rome is there. The bridge, whenever you read in history about an invader invading Rome coming from north, they cross that bridge. So it's still there after 2,000 years, and it's a wonderful area where to walk around and also enjoy some nice dishes of pasta. And that's in città giardino. But I could like keep on talking and talking for an hour with areas. It's just so full, depending on your interests, be it archaeology, history of architecture, history itself, or food, wine as well. There's the entire Castelli Romani area, which is south of Rome, where you go to have wine tastings. It's like the Tuscany of Rome. So it really depends on what you prefer, and there's just so much. So if I had to give a recommendation in general, is contact a local guide, ask for recommendations, ask for suggestions, and no commitment required. It's just we enjoy so much talking about our city that we will be more than happy to give recommendations without any commitment for hiring that tour guide afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's, I think it's so important as well to say things like that. So thank you, because I think people sort of are scared of approaching us, because then they think they are sort of, I don't know, already getting into business, which is not necessarily the truth. Of course, we would love to take as many people as possible on a tour. We do have bills to pay at the end of the day. But at the same time, this is not true of everybody, of course, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but I think many of us genuinely do what we do because we love this profession, and we love allowing people to connect with our city, the past, culture, whatever it is. So whatever we can help, that's we will always take any chances. Whether we end up giving you a tour or not, and that's a different subject. But that's also one of the beauties of social media. You can reach out to a lot of people here and leverage these platforms that we're creating, for good. We do have a question on the chat, which is, when do you think is the best time to see Rome? And I know, again, this is a very controversial question, and depending who you talk, they give you one answer or another. So I'm interested to see your answer.
So I used to answer in the past October or March, but given what has happened this October, I would shift to November. And we are getting very mild temperatures. I guess, I don't know, the result of global warming. I'm not sure. I hope this will not happen next year. But right now it is still fall weather and very pleasant. It rarely rains, nice and sunny days. So I would recommend either early November or end of March. Yes, so right before Easter, right before the high season begins. If you hate crowds and want to avoid them, February is the lowest month of the year, but it will be colder. It rarely snows in Rome. It never goes below freezing temperature. It's very hard. So even if you come in winter, it is absolutely tolerable, especially if you come from very cold areas of the world.
That's good, because I was gonna say, I know that normally, yeah, sort of like October, March have been good times for people to sort of swing by without having the masses. But yeah, just judging by some of your stories, I was like, it's like the summer. Why?
Yes, yeah. It was actually worse in October with crowds rather than in June and July.
Wow.
I struggled a lot, especially inside the Vatican museums. Some days it was really hard just to walk around. I guess everyone figured it out. Now they're coming in October. I don't know how much it was that or the fact that we still are getting many travelers that had postponed their trip during the pandemic time. So we will get back on track and understand how visitors are approaching the city in 2023. I warn everyone about 2025. That will be a very busy year in general. Whenever there's a Jubilee in Rome, wonderful experience, but expect crowds any time of the year because we have pilgrims traveling to the city as well, both Italian and foreigners.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think I'm staying clear from Italy from 2024, 2025, just because I am aware of these things. And, a lot of people just completely underestimate the amount of people that, move about because of things like this, or things such as, the Olympics or sports events, things like that. They do attract huge crowds, at the end of the day. if you can fill a whole stadium, those people will end up somewhere. So, you know, for those of you listening at home, do keep these things in mind. Sometimes all it takes is just one Google check. You know, if suddenly you are looking in the middle of February to go anywhere and Booking is telling you that all the places you wanted to go to are fully booked, there is a reason for
Ask yourself a question, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there may be reasons, and maybe you should change location. But again, it's not something a lot of people think about, or think about when they should be planning for it. I know people who want to go to the Jubilee in 2025 and have booked their holiday now. And I know that seems maybe outrageous, but you know, you gotta do it. It's not gonna be enough doing it a couple of months beforehand. You have to prepare. So you know, this is a real
exactly.
a real thing to look into. Well, I'm aware that we are starting to run out of time, but there is at least one big question I wanted to ask you before the end of this, which is to do with your tours specifically, like the services that you offer, and you know, the amount of research that you put into it. Because I know this is something you do a lot. You know, you work your routes very well. You're always trying to bring new things together. So what is your most favorite route at the moment, and why?
I missed some of the pieces because the connection was a bit bad, but I guess I just got your final question, so I get I get the point. So my famous route at the moment, considering both the practical reasons and the information I offer during that tour, is for sure, I call it the conquest of the Aventine Hill. And it's something that, yes, so I have to add drama to my tours, otherwise no one is attracted. It has some archaeology because I spend a lot of time talking about the Circus Maximus. So speaking of, you know, other things you can see besides the Colosseum, it is nearby. There's not much left, but there is an awesome virtual reality tour that is offered tied to this monument. And there's a lot of research that has been done on this area. So there is definitely a lot to talk about. And when I have children, which is usually the most requests I get is for kids tours in this part of the city, being so safe, being with no traffic, and also having so many beautiful things to see. And I make them do chariot races in the Circus Maximus, so to warn them down before we continue. And after that, this tour goes through two beautiful gardens of the city, the City Rose Garden, which has more than 1,000 samples of roses, and is the second most ancient rose competition in Europe after Paris. So every year the winner rose gets planted, so this collection of roses keeps on growing. And from there, the Orange Garden that we talked about, and another, the Keyhole, it's called. I don't know if you're aware what the Keyhole is in Rome, but there's another little mysterious location where if you look through that keyhole, there's something special inside. And when you finish at the top of that hill, you have two options, either to go to the Ostiense area that I mentioned or the Jewish district. So usually this is the tour I enjoy the most offering because it has all time periods of Rome, from ancient Rome to the Renaissance and to modern times, the 1930s, Second World War, and also a lot of beautiful viewpoints to enjoy the entire city, especially at sunset. It's beautiful. So for the couples especially, I highly recommend the Aventine Hill as a tour. If you're on a honeymoon, or if you want to surprise your partner with a special and off the beaten track tour, that I definitely recommend. It's a very nice area of the city, very pleasant, no crowds ever, and you go with your own pace. You don't have to, go fast because you want to avoid crowds or anything. So I really enjoy that part if I have to pick. Because there's so many, but usually that's the perfect combination between getting, answers to my offer, so having requests for that area of the city, and also enjoying the storytelling of that area. It's a very nice area of the city.
A nice combination. And how long roughly does that route take? Just out of interest, just because now.
Um, by going very slow, so by stopping very thoroughly in each area, 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, 2 hours. When I have, especially, these chatting, storytelling times, I never go beyond those 2 hours because then they get intense. So I understand the 3 hours, 3 hours and a half are the perfect timing for large places, large museums like the Vatican museums or the Colosseum and Palatine and Forum area. So those, yes, but usually I never go beyond those 2 hours. Otherwise, I start seeing exhausted faces and people staring at me saying, "When will you be over? I'm hungry. I'm tired. I want to leave." So if I have to go beyond the 2 hours, then usually I give either a lunch break and we continue afterwards, or we end it there and we meet in a different time of the day.
No, that's great. And again, that's a very important thing, getting people to understand that we don't have to go sort of like, military precision, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes, because then you miss the moment. And at the end of the day, we are in the industry of creating those moments for people. So if we're rushing you around, we have a schedule to meet, of course. We always do.
Yeah.
We have other tours. We have timings that we need to comply with. And sometimes you may have timings to comply with. It all depends. But I don't think if it's down to us and the tourists, just properly speaking, I don't think any of us would ever want to, force people going a specific pace. It's always better, taking 5 and just doing what you can in that time than choking yourself on too much, to see, too much to do. Because otherwise, well, like you said, you don't enjoy it. So
yes, and it's also a matter of adjusting to the pace or the interests of the visitors I have with me. Sometimes I have that archaeology geek that really would like to stay just 1 hour and a half inside the Circus Maximus, reconstructing everything and imagining and skipping other parts. So this is also important to point out. I believe, and this maybe other colleagues of mine think it in a completely different way, but to me, a good tour guide is the tour guide that listens to you also. Like, it's not just throwing information at you, but also kind of adjusts to your reaction. So, and that's also how you are not boring and how you are able to give information and allow a place to speak for 2-3 hours. It's a dialogue. It's not a one-way communication. But that's also important to point out. Yes, we do have to consider schedules and timings, but also, who we have in front of us. And also that a 6-year-old is not going to be the same as a local who has an archaeology degree. So we also have to adjust based on that. And I understand not everyone is able to do it, especially at first, but in theory, that should be our goal as tour guides. No stereotypes about, walking around with a little flag and repeating the same things over and over. We're over that concept of tour guide. We're in 2022, and let's underline that it's a different job now, that we are all professionals that are also storytellers.
Or at least that's the goal. I think that's definitely how things are turning. It generally breaks my heart when I see some of these tours where I know it's the same person saying the same 5 lines that they've said the hour before and 2 hours ago, and nothing ever changes. And it's just like there is no longer a soul in there. That's just a machine. You could buy a robot,
a robot, exactly,
and go with the flow. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes travelers, when you're dealing with people, sometimes it can be hard, and sometimes no matter how you try, as I'm sure you know this, you're trying and trying and trying to engage, and people are just
yes, absolutely. Yes. I just want to take a selfie in that spot, and that's it. And then I did have this happen, like people entering with me in a site, taking a selfie, and that's just leaving the tour. I mean, that's also part of the business, and you deal with it. Usually when you can create a connection, it's best to keep that connection going and adjusting to the rhythm and pace of who you have in front of you. And especially children, like they're the dream, if you can just not convince, but remind a child that these are magical places and make it so that they are willing to come back when they're grown-ups, then the highest goal has been achieved. So I try to, do my best, especially to involve children in tours. They're not luggage, let's say, like many adults treat them. They are visitors as well as the 40-year-old in the tour.
Yes, that's 100% right. And you know what? I actually love having children in tour because kids keep you on your toes. Kids will always ask the most outrageous questions. You can't just deliver your script and not expect any random mistakes, because kids will just be driven by whatever, and you need to show there that you actually know stuff, and that you can cater for that kind of spontaneous thought, which is again part of being in the moment, and I think something that definitely children do a lot better than adults. So I'm here, this suddenly clicks with me, so let's talk about it. So there we go. Now I'm very aware that we are now literally about to go over, so it's gonna come to an end, folks. I'm sorry. We could carry on talking about Rome and Miss Alba forever, but she has other things to do, and so do we all. So as the last thing, any messages you want to throw out there for the world, for the universe to know about you or Rome, please take the floor, and that will be the end of this. So all yours.
Well, thank you everyone for being part of this chat with us. I would say to be curious whenever you organize a trip, be it with me, as obviously I would be the happiest in the world if you get in touch with me, but be curious and always ask, what else is there? That is our goal as tour guides. We love responding to this question, so do not imagine me or tour guides in general as just focusing on the most famous sites and that's it. We are so happy when you ask that question. What else is there? What else can I see? What do you recommend? What is best? So yeah, I guess this would be, the final message.
Engage and explore. That's the that is very Indiana Jones.
Damn it! I thought I made it.
No, but that's awesome. And honestly, again, everyone that follows me knows that I very much resonate with the same idea, which is one of the reasons why I'm so thankful that you're here, because I really love everything that you put out there, and I really, really hope that little by little Rome becomes that better place, because I generally think it can. One of the reasons why Rome actively remains as one of my worst holidays ever is because I had all of those experiences of going somewhere because it was just the name that you had to visit, and it was crowded and it was horrible, which is awful. And in fact, some of the places that I enjoyed most was when I crossed the river, and I did that because I had a paper guide that told me, cross the river, go eat some food. And I was like, yes, food, I will go there. But otherwise, it generally would have been a car crash. So I really hope people will not have that experience that I did. And you guys will actually be able to enjoy all of the lovely things this city and many other places around the world have to offer. And unfortunately, that's the end of the show today. So thank you so much, Alba, once again for being here. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
And you're always welcome here or whatever I may be. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on the chat. Also, to our colleagues who were on the chat and that were sending their love, thank you so much. Petra Tour Guide, you're the best. And to our colleague in Syria as well, very much welcome. Feel free to, message the general tour guiding community and enjoy the offers about the world that we have there to explore. And that's everything for today. So see you later, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.